own co-founder of Bondex here one more session with you. And today we have the luck and the pleasure of having Morten Nielsen, co-founder and CFO of ARYZE with us today. And without further ado, I'll let Morten introduce himself and his company.
Well, basically, we are. Thanks for having us on the show here today. ARYZE is all about next generation payments and programmable money. We are looking to find ways in which we can transfer money around the world much cheaper than it is today. How we can include billions of people into the financial world simply through money, adding them onto some kind of digital platform that will make them financially included and thereby improve their chances of improving their livelihood going forward. And that's not going to happening with the current banking system and the current technology stacks that we have around money and payments, for example, and the issue of programmable money. But that's coming in with blockchain technology and something we call cloud native core banking solutions, which are completely different technology sets. And that's what ARYZE is all about, payments and programmable money.
I love that. And that reminds me of, I guess I've seen some content recently that people forget that Bitcoin was not actually started as a store of value or digital gold. In fact, it was meant to be a means of payment. But then the technology turned out to be actually not the correct one for that use case, right? Because of speed and the volume, and it ended up becoming too expensive. And then there was a fork into Bitcoin Cash, right? So you're more focused on the unbanked and making blockchain accessible to the masses in relation to making payments or global remittance cheaper, right, and accessible, if I'm getting that correct.
Absolutely correct. I mean, things have moved, as you say, correctly from Bitcoin being a way of remitting and transferring value, i.e. money or representation of something that has value, to being much more kind of a storage of value. Long term, an alternative to the fiat banking systems and traditional money as we know it, a kind of digital gold, storing value in the digital future, which I think is a really cool concept, but it's certainly not the right thing to use for payments as such. Much too expensive in terms of settlement. When you mint and demint and settle transactions on a blockchain, it's just way too expensive. And what is required as well is that you need to have instant finality and settlement on payments to make sure that it works efficiently. And it has to be extremely cheap to do so as well.
Agreed. I completely align on you there. I'd love to hear more about your vision of how, and by the way, for those of you listening, ARYZE actually has already many accolades and awards that they've won, both in their native life as a fintech provider and in Copenhagen as innovators. So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your vision about where you see the company going and how you see about accomplishing this. Well, what's something you're excited about in the next 6 to 9 months that your company's tackling or focusing on?
Well, it kind of divides into two, right? We have a lot of focus on financial inclusion, providing a bank account, a simple bank account for payments, receiving and sending money for the masses, right? That's not only related to developing countries, but also to all the people who are financially excluded in the developing world. And you'll be surprised, some people are surprised to know that 35 million American households are severely underbanked. 18 million have no bank account at all in the US. And these numbers are quite staggering for the UK as well and other developed countries, right? So what we're doing here is to create a framework for these people to be onboarded and so that they can get access to financial services in one shape or another in a much more simple platform than what you have today. To achieve that, we run two systems. We have one we call cloud native core banking, which is essentially highly advanced database solutions that are living in the cloud. That enables us to do transactions extremely cheaply compared to the platforms and systems that you operate today. And they combine with KYC models and AML models, where you basically can get a bank account with us for relatively small scale payments that requires virtually no ID at all. We need a little bit of information about who you are, where you're coming from, and all that. You don't need a passport, you don't need a driver's license, and you certainly do not need another bank account because you don't have one in the first place. And then as you go along and you become you have more and more transactions going through your account, and the daily volume of balances increases, then we require more and more ID as you go along. But that, as we think, is a solution to include people financially around the world. That works on a global scale in any currency in the future, and we will have support for 25 currencies within the next 12 to 16 months. And then, but there's one element missing from that element, and that's what we're combining into what we call MAMA, which is a mobile device. MAMA stands for multi-asset modular apps, where you can combine this representation of money into blockchain technology and digital representation of money at the same time, i.e. primarily stable coins, but also other types of tokenized assets. Why would we want that? Because we also want to open up for decentralized finance. We want to open up for innovation in the financial world so that anybody can build whatever they want that is suitable for their local market, and use that stack of technology that enables that. And that's by making money truly programmable by using blockchain technology.
That's fantastic and very complete answer. That's a very, very exciting roadmap that you have ahead of you, and a fantastic mission for everyone listening. 35 million Americans. That means 10% of the American population is excluded from the banking sector,
Not this.
basically excluded by banks because they're poor people. Instead of, these people should actually be the ones that we give the most help to integrate them into society, which is completely unfair. So a company like ARYZE and their mission, I think, is crucial to integrate it. One question I wanted to ask you, this is something that, for example, we at Bondex are trying to bring people from Web2 and traditional industry into careers into Web3, right? And the new world of technology. We consider ourselves to be a bridge or an oracle. When you're dealing with the unbanked, right? These people don't have resources. What is their level of education and their level of kind of perception of cryptocurrency? Is it a hard user acquisition that you have to kind of use a lot of education to bring these people to this type of solution? Do you find it easy? I'd love to hear a little bit about your user acquisition in that respect.
Extremely difficult, to be honest. And that's one of the things we're missing today. We need to consumer face the whole industry in a way where it becomes really, really easy for people to understand what they're dealing with here. We need to create UI UX that basically makes it exceptionally easy to use for people who just do not understand technology, and a lot of people don't understand finance and money in the first place, right? I mean, so we really need that right now. I mean, just the issue of handling private keys for somebody who is today financially excluded from any banking industry. How would they understand how the private keys should be managed in the context of money and digital representation of money and stable coins and all that? We definitely need to consumer face it in a way that we haven't really addressed yet. So where the industry stands, as far as I'm concerned, is that we're kind of in a standstill situation right now, where we're more or less ready, right? We're ready to push the last frontier towards the consumers on a massive scale, and that needs to happen in the next year or two, so that we really get full traction on this in the global communities. But we're not completely ready for that yet. We need compliance, we need regulation, we need the US Stablecoin Act, MiCA, marketing crypto assets regulations to come through to the forefront, so we know exactly what we're dealing with when it comes to the more traditional world. And once we adapted that and consumer face the whole industry with blockchain technology, then we can start going completely nuts and wild on financial product development and all the cool things that you need today, right? But can I give you an example of how it works today? Okay,
Yeah, please walk us through it.
I have another company that is a design company that creates sort of focuses on sustainable tropical forestry stuff. I had with that company that I actually don't work for it. I work 100%, 10% for ARYZE, right? But it's sort of decentralized to some other people in that company. We had factoring as a service, right? When we had to deal with clients, we were uncertain about the credit exposure and so on, and how that would they ever pay their bills, etc., etc. So we used factoring, and we had one German client who bought sort of 15,000 euros worth of goods from us at one stage, and they never actually paid. Okay, fine. They didn't pay for one reason or another. They complained about the products, but they didn't want to return it, etc., etc. Long story short, we didn't care. We had factoring, so we had credit insurance on the client, not a problem. Then what happened is that after 3 months we were not doing anything, and then all of a sudden we get a letter from the factoring company saying they tried to go through um, what are they called, debt collecting agencies in Germany, etc., etc., but they ran into a wall and couldn't do any more, and we wouldn't get any money at all. It's just like, what? What? And that's what we're insuring for, right? And we're paying 5% of all transaction values for factoring. So we was completely stunned by that. The product didn't work at the end of the day. We never got our money. Okay, and in the end, we never got the money. So how can we change that with blockchain technology, where we can create something which is a lot of people are working on already now, which is called um, uh, DCM. Uh, what does DCM stands for? It's basically an escrow system where you take a contract on one hand and you take digital money into escrow in digital capital management. It's called DCM. And then you have a smart contract on top of that, and with the money and the contract against each other, with a smart contract on top, then you can basically determine the parameters of how that money that is in escrow should be paid out to the supplier of the goods, who basically provide you, in this case, with some jewelry products. And it's all automatic. So when the goods are shipped from the factory, then you pay 25% of that, of the total invoice. And when it arrives at destination, you pay an additional 25%, and then maybe you have 2 months credit on the rest of that. That business alone, that of unpaid bills every year in the world, is something like $2,000 billion every year that can be managed, but people just don't pay their bills. Now you automate everything. How can you do that? Well, you use blockchain technology for that. Digital contract management is exactly what it is. In that, you can add insurtech to it, so insurance is also involved, and you can securitize the product so that it becomes financeable. And all of this can happen using developers sitting in Australia, in New Zealand, in South Africa, Nigeria, US, wherever. It's all code, it's all digitalized, and that opens up for a completely different world of financial products being developed to the masses and businesses alike. So a very exciting future as far as I'm concerned.
That's incredible, and one much more efficient, in which everyone sort of pulls their own weight. So you're saying right now there's 2 trillion a year of bills that are unpaid, which are essentially, those are loans gone bad from small to big. The ones that, like, for example, the banks have to provision for example, that all falls into that category.
It's basically, you buy something from a supplier, and then you have an issue with the product that you receive, and you don't want to pay for it. Okay, and you don't want to pay for it, and you want a credit, you want a reduction in the price and all that. How much of that is essentially settled is an unknown figure, but we know from the likes of Tradeshift, which is a Danish company, that billions of dollars worth of international and domestic trades is never paid for or in dispute in the payment cycle from product to being paid for.
And that's every year.
Uh, and that's every year. We can
That's
solve
incredible.
that through technology, using blockchain technology with digital contract management.
That's incredible. And yeah, that seems for a very exciting future. And that brings me to my next question. As I've been saying, Bondex is a professional network. Maybe you can walk us through the type of jobs that you think are going to be created and maybe taken away from traditional financing to this new kind of financial world. And maybe tell us more about the structure of the team at ARYZE and how you guys go about hiring. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, unfortunately, we're in a situation where our we have too many people working on regulation and compliance. We'd like to have many more developers than we have today. And then, because that's what it's all about. It's all about development. It's about writing code. It's about creating new financial products that make sense for the masses, that are not siloed into the banks. Okay. Unfortunately, for better or worse, we have regulation, we have compliance, we have AML policies, we have KYC, we have a number of different things we need to adhere to, which is kind of it's just have to be done, right? And we spend a lot of money and time on being compliant and creating the the most trustworthy products at the same time. But there's a big difference between being trustworthy from a blockchain perspective relative to compliance as far as a legal issue is concerned. So, but we are very far advanced with that, and we believe that when we come out with the first series of stable coins to the market, we will have the most trustworthy and reliable product that you can have, which is 100% backed by government issued um, bonds and bills, and third-party verified. All risk are taken into consideration so that people can use that as a programmable element, or just the money for remittances and moving values around, that they can trust 100%. Taking us a long time to get to that. The e-euro will be available within 6 weeks as our first launch. Then comes e-sterling, and then followed quite closely after that with dollar. That programmable element of true money as we know it, we think is essential for building ecosystem in the financial world using blockchain technology. And so we're really excited about that. But it's always about to everything now, so isn't it? I mean, the amount of time we spent on making this compliant with not only current, isn't that much current legislation surrounding stablecoins, but it's coming. Making it compliant to be a fourth generation kind of product is an enormous amount of time and so we so spend on that. In the future, we will have a whole library of programmable elements that developers can pick up from us and use our stable coins and other products that we will be launching and lift them off in sort of a open source network of protocols that can be lifted for developing whatever financial products you need for your specific market. That's the end goal, basically.
That's fantastic, and I think that regulation, which it's coming. We all keep hearing that, but they're so slow, right? And the problem is that I think the pace and advancement of innovation is exponential, and they have they haven't even barely figured out how to do cryptos. Now they need to do stable coins. Now they need to regulate NFTs. Now DeFi. They're so far behind that I just don't even know when exactly they're going to be able to actually regulate. I don't think they're able going to be able to catch up to the latest product that the blockchain or Web3 industry has come up with. We're always going to be
Yeah.
behind. So maybe one of the most important jobs is to actually beef up the regulatory side of in terms of talent pool and human capital. But in order for that to happen, more people from Web3 need to be interested in getting into a regulation career and bring their skills and knowledge. Because I don't think the people regulating the space necessarily have a lot of experience with it. For the
No,
most
I agree. I completely agree. And to be honest with you, it's kind of a two two-sided sword, right? And a double-edged kind of thing. Whatever. I mean, I teach here in Denmark on the Danish banking industry's educational center about AML and KYC policies and issues in the current banking system, right? And one of the big problems I have is that right now we know that human trafficking and drug trafficking in the world is worth something like $600 billion a year. Okay, so
staggering number.
that's just that, I mean, that's twice the size of the GDP of Denmark, for Christ's sake. I mean, that's enormous amount of money that is illegally floating around where the current existing banking systems, right? So on the back of that, you create enormous amount of legislation that needs to deal with that situation, but it's not working, right? They're not catching the bad guys. It's still happening, and that affects the way we can go nuts on innovation in our part of the world. But that doesn't, this just makes it complicated for us to deliver all the DeFi products we would like to do because of other problems that are related to the banking industry not investing enough in technology to trace payments and all the things you can do with blockchain technology. So, but I think we should just stand strong and go still go nuts because eventually legislation will come in that will facilitate our space. And I think the MiCA in the EU is a step in the right direction. And they know that they have to do something about this, right? And hence also all the discussions we have about CBDCs coming to the market, in highly complex thing that one can talk about in one or two or three different sessions in the future, a highly complex thing, and people think it's very easy to do. It's not. because it's the same as creating the central bank money available for everybody, having a bank, essentially having a bank account in the central bank. So it's much more complicated than people think, but people are willing to look at that. So if you look at where we were 3 years ago, nobody would take paying attention, saying it's all illegal money, and they were disregarding the innovation kind of aspect of blockchain technology and all the things we can do. But I think that we are ARYZE, like hundreds of other companies, are working on all these legislative frameworks that would enable the future for all of us. And from that perspective, we need people to stop working with legislation and regulations and all that, and go nuts on innovation instead. That would be much cooler, right? Because
I,
there's so many things to do.
I completely agree with you. I think we need to go move fast and break things, but maybe not break the law that doesn't even exist yet. And more,
Yeah.
we're actually reaching the end of our interview, and we like to we like to do this kind of survey, let's call it. And just to be clear with everyone, this is not Bondex or ARYZE's financial advice or investment advice in any way or form. These are our personal opinions that do not constitute any investment advice. But we like to ask at the end our guest, given the current market conditions, I guess interest rates keep going up, inflation is up. There seems to be like there's going to be a tightening, which has never happened while blockchain has existed. What is your view of the market conditions, current market conditions, and the short-term market conditions? Where do you see the market going?
Are you asking me or the general public?
You, you what your perception is of what you think the market is going to do, essentially.
I mean, I'm not sure how you can correlate everything to Bitcoin, but if Bitcoin is an alternative to gold, a virtual way of storing value and money, I mean, isn't it a question of when we're going to see 100K in price? I mean, I, I mean, I would not be surprised if we see 100K before the end of the year. Let's put it that way.
Really,
And yeah, for
I
sure.
like that. You're bullish.
You can always wrap it, right? If settlement becomes too on-chain, becomes too expensive, you can wrap it. You can create all sorts of cool products behind that, and starting creating pools on that. I think, don't forget that the whole space is minimal at this point in time, right? We have not yet seen institutionalization of the whole space yet. That's coming,
It's
you know,
coming in
and
slowly.
and and slowly but steadily, right? And all of a sudden, I think we will see that people understand that physical gold is a good way of storing value. It's not particularly efficient way of storing value. Bitcoin would definitely be one. Ethereum, it would be the same, right? I mean, why would that not be a good storage of value? There's so many use cases behind the Ethereum blockchains and the derivatives of that. So no, I'm very optimistic on price, even though I'm certainly not the one to speculate about whether it's going to happen tomorrow or a month from now, for sure.
Yeah, we're not speculators in Bondex either, but we like to take a pulse from every one of our guests because they come from all the different verticals of Web3, and it's always interesting to hear diverse opinions on where the market's going. And with this, we conclude our latest episode of the Bondex live stream. Morten, thank you very much for coming over. Very,
Thanks for
very,
having me.
and we'll take a bit of a chat offline now. Guys, and the community, thank you for joining, and we'll see you in our next session. Goodbye, everyone.